WBC President Mauricio Suleiman has come out and said that the WBC will make a ruling on this Alexander Povetkin drug situation in the next few days. This comes just a few days after Rubinsky, the promoter of Povetkin, had stated that in his belief, the WBC investigation would take several months. Now, Rubinsky has also been in the press today, and he has cited an example of another Russian athlete who was caught for meldonium, whose test was similar, or whose tests were similar to Povetkin's, in the sense that some of them showed up traces of meldonium and others were clean. And he claims that this is evidence that meldonium can pop in and out of your system. It can pop in and out of tests, depending on many different factors. Okay. What he didn't mention is that there have been dozens of Russian athletes who have been caught for meldonium, and the substance hasn't been showing up in some tests and not showing up in other tests. It hasn't. It's been showing up either in all tests or no tests for the vast majority of these Russian athletes who have been caught. But he's managed to find an example of this woman who's had similar test results to Povetkin. Now, this woman goes by the name of Yulia Efimova. She's a swimmer, a Russian swimmer. And she was popped for meldonium earlier this year. And she received an instant ban from the regulatory body that, deals with swimming. Now, she has some backers, and somehow, some way, her backers, who appear to be more powerful than the backers of other swimmers, managed to get her ban lifted, because she had a temporary ban while she was being investigated. They managed to get her temporary ban lifted, and she is now allowed to compete in swimming again while she's being investigated. But Rubinsky tried to insinuate through his articles that this woman has been exonerated and cleared of all wrongdoing. She hasn't. And I'll leave a link to the article that I'm getting this information from in the comment section below. Go read it for yourselves. This is a swimming website, and they're, quoting all types of different officials within the world of swimming. She hasn't been exonerated at all. She's still under investigation, and she could still face a lifetime ban. What the World Anti-Doping Agency are doing at the moment is they are trying to establish how long meldonium can stay in your system and whether or not this woman's claims are actually true. Okay, and while they're investigating this, she's allowed to compete in the meantime. That's what's happened. And there are many people in the world of swimming who are very unhappy with the fact that she's allowed to compete. And they see it as a double standard where most athletes get straight banned and they're not allowed to compete while they're being investigated. But with this woman, for whatever reason, due to her backers and the pressure that she managed to put on the WADA and the swimming authorities, she's allowed to compete while she's being investigated. And I'm going to quote from this is a quote from, where is this guy now? Yeah, this is a quote from the senior Swedish coach and former Russian head coach, Dr. Andrei Vorontsov. He said, "I am not in favor. This is a bad signal. I talked to swimmers and coaches before it happened, and they told me they would be very angry, and now it has happened, and they are angry. It should be a lesson for those who want to find a shortcut. I think she should be still out until it's decided." So this is a senior person here. This is the former Russian head coach and the former and the current Swedish coach of swimming. And he's saying that there's no way that the ban should be lifted while she's being investigated. This is wrong. For most athletes, they don't do this, but with her, for some reason, they're doing it. Now, I suspect, we know that, for example, Rubinsky, Povetkin's promoter, is a very powerful man. He's a billionaire. This guy outbid the Klitschko's, during the negotiations the purse bid negotiations for the Klitschko-Povetkin fight. Very few people can outbid the Klitschko's. He did. So he's a very powerful man. And when he said that he thinks the WBC investigation is going to take several months, I'm speculating here, but I think he was referring to the WADA investigation, the World Anti-Doping Agency investigation, because they've lifted this woman's temporary ban and allowed her to compete while she's being investigated. And I think Rybinski is probably going to get the same situation with Povetkin. While Povetkin is still being investigated at the WBC in conjunction with the World Anti-Doping Agency and the Voluntary Anti-Doping Agency, while they're still investigating Povetkin and they're trying to investigate this substance, meldonium, and find out how long it stays in your system, Rybinski may have been able to apply enough pressure to allow Povetkin to have the same privilege as this woman, whereby he's allowed to compete while he's still being investigated. And that may be what the WBC rule in the next few days, that they're going to allow Povetkin to compete while they investigate this situation. So, yeah, that's what I think is likely to happen. Am I happy with it? Not really, no. And most people, as you can, well, a lot of people anyway, a lot of official people within the world of swimming to do with this woman's case, Yulia Efimova, a lot of people are unhappy. Obviously, there's quotes here from Russian media who are very happy. But you'd expect that, wouldn't you, from Russian media? But in terms of the people who are actually in the industry, most of them seem to be saying that they're unhappy with the fact that this woman's allowed to compete. So I won't be happy if Povetkin's allowed to compete. I think it's very, sinister what's going on. Could Povetkin be innocent? Could there be another explanation? Yes, there could be. But I just don't like, I like these people in the world of swimming are saying, shouldn't it be one rule for everybody instead of chopping and changing and having different rules for different people? That's my take on it anyway. If Povetkin is allowed to compete while the investigations continue, will he take an interim fight? Will he push for this mandatory fight against Wilder? And will Wilder vacate his WBC world title if Povetkin is allowed to compete while he's being investigated? Because Rybinski is adamant that this mandatory challenge to Wilder will still go ahead and it will take place by the end of the year. So what will Wilder do there? Will Povetkin go? Me personally, I don't have any problem with the fight going ahead, particularly if the fight was in the United States at this stage. If it was in the United States and they've got VADA testing again, I wouldn't have any problem with it going ahead. I just have a problem with, after what's happened, I would have a problem with everything being in Povetkin and Rybinski's favor, the fight being in Russia and all that type of stuff. I'd be very skeptical of all that, given the circumstances. And I think the WBC, if they have any backbone at all, I think they should make some type of ruling. If they're going to enforce this mandatory and force Wilder to actually face Povetkin and not give Povetkin any ban and allow him to compete while he's being investigated, then at the least, I think they should allow Wilder to have the defense, if he decides to hold on to the belt, to have the defense in the United States and not in Russia. I think the WBC should at least do that. They've given Wilder this voluntary defense option, which is obviously the right thing to do. But I think one step further, if you're going to force him to fight Povetkin, let the fight be in the US. Yeah. Even if Povetkin has to take a bigger cut of the money, let the fight be in the US, man. Particularly after what's happened on previous shows. On a previous show involving the WBC and Povetkin, back in, was it September last year, the Marius Wack fight? Look at the situation there with Duradola and Wack with their tests and the suspicious situation surrounding that. Given all that, I think that's what the WBC should do, to say, all right, the fight has to go ahead, but it has to be in the United States. So those are my thoughts on it, people. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.